Hello everyone, my name is Alessandro and this is the Temple of Surf, the podcast. We will give you full access to the best surfers, skaters, shapers, surfboard collectors, shop owners in the world. Discover with me their stories, the greater successes, amazing behind the scenes and much more. Hello everyone and welcome to the fourth episode of the Temple of Surf, the podcast. Today with us is Baird, curator of the Australian National Surfing Museum based in Torquay, Victoria. With him we discover more about the world's largest surfing museum, surfboards and much more. Hi Craig and welcome to the show. Where are you today?
Sitting at home in Torquay, working from home, which is kind of cool.
It's a new reality, really. Yeah, how's it going over there? How is the coronavirus confinement?
Yeah, look, it's a little bit weird. It's weird not being at the museum because we're open 364 days a year. So in the 27-year history of the museum, we've only been closed 27 days. So right now, I think this is about week 8 of working from home. So it definitely feels a bit weird.
So how long the museum has been closed? Since how long? Since is a couple of weeks? Is a month?
No. As I said, about 8 weeks. I think this is week 8. Yeah.
Is that big in Australia? The confinement for the coronavirus?
Oh, I think they got onto it pretty quickly, and they were keen to try and do the right thing as quickly as possible to just minimise the spread, which certainly seems to have helped.
Definitely. So today we're not going to talk about coronavirus, of course. We're going to talk about surfboards and, of course, about the museum. But the first question that we have for you is how you ended up working for the museum.
A bit of a long story. It goes right back to the day that I left school. I started managing a surf shop in a town nearby for a company called Piping Hot. And so, literally the day one of my work experience was working in a surf shop. I did that for a couple of years and then worked as a labourer for a few more years and then got a gig at Rip Curl working in the showroom over summer, but also painting their surfboards. So, I had an artistic background and they liked the work that I was doing and wanted to see it on their boards. So I did that for 26 years and about halfway through that stint I started working at the museum. So I've been there for 21 years.
It's quite an adventure, right? Lifetime.
Well, yeah, look, I'm just so lucky because I've had a couple of dream jobs. As a kid, if you'd said what would you like to do, painting surfboards for a living would be one of them. And then, as I said, the way that put me in touch with so many people in the surfing industry and famous names and shapers, then that's worked perfectly as far as my background at the museum.
Fantastic. In your opinion, what is the most important thing in surfing?
I think the most valuable thing in surfing is the fact that it's just fun. None of us would do it if it wasn't fun, The level that fun comes at is really interesting because, of course, as a kid, a 1 foot wave will scare you. But as you develop and your skills develop, then obviously you look for more challenging surf. And so it's a really cool thing that no matter how old you are, no matter how fit you are, no matter where you are in the world, you can find somewhere to paddle out and have a bit of fun. Yeah,
I guess is what the Duke was saying. No, the best surfer out there is the one that have the most fun. Is having the most.
Yeah, well, I think one of the problems with surfing is that competitive surfing is kind of like the face of surfing. It's the only thing that makes the news and competitive surfing and big wave surfing. And for most people, both of those things are sort of unattainable, but it's beyond their experience. So for most people, it's about going to the beach and having fun, whether that's by yourself or with your friends.
Exactly.
And, I think if all of the structure and the mechanism for competitive surfing and all the money and sponsors and everything were taken away, that people would still be surfing because they just love it.
Exactly. Yeah. No matter how much money is in the business, nevertheless, money helps, right? Like young athletes to dedicate their life to surfing, right?
Yeah, it's great that opportunity exists, but we're in talking to people at the museum, especially school groups. We talk about how surfing's a bit like a pyramid, and there's that small group of elite surfers at the top of the pyramid that are travelling the world, enjoying fantastic locations and getting paid to do it. But at the other end of that, there's millions of people that just love it and go to the beach and enjoy it on whatever terms they can.
Yeah. Do you remember the first surfboard that you ever surfed?
Yeah. I bought it from my sister's boyfriend, and it cost me $30. And it's quite funny. We had a board in the museum recently that was pretty much exactly the same shape, and I just loved it. I mean, nobody else did, but I loved it just because it was, the same as my first board. So even so, this is 15 years old. Even at that point, I grabbed some little hobby paints, little tins of Humbrol paint, and painted a mural on the bottom of the surfboard. So that was part of it from day one, was personalising your surfboard.
Do you still have that surfboard, or?
No, I wish I did. It was really funny because for years I'd see the guy that ended up with it, and nobody else in the world would care about that surfboard except me. But he knew that I wanted it, so it was like, you can't have it. So I know this is podcast rather than video, but there's a board behind me on the wall here, which is a board that I sold in the surf shop when I was there in 1977. And it took a long, long time, but I ended up buying that back. And, I look at the thing every day and it makes me smile.
Yeah. I think it's a good memory, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So let's talk about the Australian National Surfing Museum. So December 1993, right?
Yeah. The museum came about, it was a unique alignment of factors that there were. Surfing Australia was based in Torquay at the time. Torquay was the home of two of the largest surf labels in the world, which is Quicksilver and Rip Curl. So an active group of people, some pioneer surfers that were pushing the idea, and the Surfing Association, of course, helped kick the thing along. So, as I said, it was a unique alignment of factors that came into play. I think we were the third surfing museum globally to open. And I think we've got the largest footprint, so the largest surfing museum in the world in Torquay. I started there, I think, about 6 months down the track, and have had evolving roles there. So from 2 days a week to 4 days a week to full time to, I think, in 2009 becoming a curator. So yeah, it's been a pretty good journey.
What is the biggest achievement that the museum reached so far?
I guess there's a lot of things that we could look at as being really positive outcomes. But the real challenge for us is that the Australian surfing story is a huge story. So for us to try and tell that huge story in a limited space, because it grows every day, that's the biggest challenge, And we have the problem is we have people coming in wanting to see specific parts of the story, and of course we can't have all of the story up all of the time. So we rotate material around, and we rotate the displays so that we can try and tell as much of the story as we can. But sometimes I had a really classic one. There's a young guy called Robert Connelly that won the juniors at the first World Championship at Manly in 1964. So we had the shorts that his mum had made for him, and his World Championship trophy on display for a couple of years. And 2 weeks after we took them off display, one of his friends came in and, of course, was really disappointed that he didn't see anything about Robert Connelly. So I was just like, what can you do?
You cannot please everybody, right?
Yeah, I just told him he should have been here 2 weeks ago,
I read in the website that the International Surfing Association defined the museum as a place of surfing significance. What the statement means for you and for the people that work in the museum?
Yeah, I guess the meaning can change over time. I know that, as I said before, that because we were one of the first few surfing museums in the world, and it had been a museum that was developed by surfers and been delivered by surfers, that it was seen as being, quite a significant thing. But I think over time, our importance and the role that we play has expanded beyond that initial meaning. We have people. I think for the people that developed the museum, the idea was that it would be a trip down memory lane for old surfers. They'd be able to come in and see their legacy up on the wall. But I think what happens now is that there's probably three groups that we have that regularly visit the museum, which is school students, people travelling around Australia, but also a lot of international visitors as well. There are times when the international visitors are 70% of our visitation. So we do get a lot of people from, countries literally all around the world. And obviously for people from places like Azerbaijan and places like that, it's a bit weird to arrive in a town where everybody surfs and these people sort of go, what the hell's going on here?
Yes, I guess it contributes to the overall experience, of people traveling to Australia. Basically, surf is part of the history of Australia, if you want to say, modern history. And in the website, you're saying that there are like over 100 years of surfing history and stories in Australia. So what is your favorite one?
We've got a couple of really good ones represented in the museum. So obviously I'm close to those stories. We've got two of the oldest surfboards in Victoria on display. So that's the very start of the surfing story in this part of the world. So those boards were purchased in Hawaii and brought back to the West Coast here in Victoria. So, to be able to touch those boards, which were shaped in Hawaii and were surfed there over 100 years ago, is a really, really cool thing. And we've got a display on at the moment of a whole bunch of boards from the surf contest at Bells in 1981 when the surf got really big. So it's almost like the transition from single fins, twin fins, boards with multiple fins, and even the first thruster that Simon Anderson rode, and particularly in really big surf on Saturday at that event, he demonstrated the potential of the thruster of the 3-fin surfboard to the competitive world. But look, personally, I'm a huge Mark Richards fan, so we're really lucky because we've got 3 of his really colourful wetsuits and we've got 6 of his surfboards on display. So one of them in particular is a board, a Ben Iper surfboard that's got flames on it. And I remember seeing that board in the magazine when I was a kid, and it kind of inspired me to pick up an airbrush and paint surfboards. So that's a surfboard that changed my life, and I see it every day.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Is that the most important item that you have in the museum? Or in your opinion, what is the rarest one, or the one of historic significance, if you want to say?
Yeah, it's funny. I always describe it as the 5 boards I grab first if the place is on fire.
Okay.
That clarifies your thinking, rather than trying to anticipate or what the stories are and how they're valued. It's if it was an absolute emergency, which ones would go out the door first. So I think those 2 Hawaiian boards, simply because of their age and the story that they tell, would be my absolute favourites. But then very closely followed by MR's boards and Simon Anderson's thruster and things like that.
Okay. Waiting for opening the doors of the museum, what are you preparing for the visitors? I know that currently you have an exhibition called Waves and Wheels, right?
Yeah. Recently, what we've been working on is 2 temporary exhibitions each year and 1 permanent exhibition. The permanent exhibition that we've got this year is called Waves and Wheels, and it's about surfers, or the relationship between surfers and their cars. Particularly in the era of sort of, the early 60s until the 80s, where, a lot of surfers had time on their hands. Everybody had access to cheap cars and fuel wasn't too expensive. And it wasn't uncommon to just grab your mates, grab your board and disappear for the weekend, up and down the coast looking for waves. So it's that surfing adventure is part of the tradition of surfing in Australia, surfing travel. I remember years ago that a mate and I did a trip to Sydney. There was no surf here, so we did a trip to Sydney. And so that was Thursday night we left, and Saturday morning we were surfing locally, and people were going, "Oh, you guys went to Sydney?" And we're like, "Yeah, we did. There was no surf." So, 2,000-kilometre road trip, no surf at the end. Yeah, well, surfers are crazy. So, as I said, so surfing adventure is a big part of it, and that's why we concentrated on that for the exhibition. But also we do more temporary exhibitions, and the most recent one of those, which we're just talking about, is Simon Anderson Bells 81 contest. So we've got all the boards and his trophies from Bells in 1977 and 81. And what we're going to replace that with, so that will be, when we open the doors, there'll be a new exhibition. and that will be all about the those first surfboards in Victoria. That's just over 100 years since they were brought out from Hawaii. So we thought it's a perfect opportunity to tell that story on the centenary of those boards arriving.
And how people can support the museum?
Look, the funny thing at the moment is it's been sort of challenging not being at work, but what we've also been doing is trying to come up with different ways that we can share our story with a global audience. So one of the things we've been doing, obviously schools aren't able to visit the museum, so what we've been doing is trying to develop online visits to the museum so we can actually present them with all the information and people can virtually visit the museum. So that's one really good thing. We did a project with Google over the last couple of years, which was launched in August last year. So if you Google Great Sporting Land, you'll find the museum or a museum logo. And if you go to the museum page, you can explore hundreds of items from our collection. There are stories and excerpts from some exhibitions as well as a 3D walkthrough of the museum. So that's a really great way that I guess people that will never get to physically visit the museum can enjoy it and have a look around and check out some of our stuff.
Okay, fantastic. We're going to finish our interview with a short Q&A session. So please,
Sure.
The first thing that comes up to your mind, okay? Let's try. The best surfboard that you ever ridden?
There's two. There's a longboard that I've got that as I got older and less fit, I had a friend, a guy that I was actually spraying surfboards for, make me a longboard. And it is the most forgiving, it's like an extension of your body, I've surfed this thing for years, like 15 plus years, and it still surprises me. So it's like, if I had to have one surfboard for the rest of my life, that would be it. But at the same time, the current board that I've got is shaped by the guy. Actually, he does the shaping as a display in the museum, a guy called Eiji Shiyamoto. And it's basically a blown up version of one of John John's boards, but I'm a big guy, so it's 8'4" long. It's 24 inches wide. It's 3 3/4 thick.
Okay.
It's EPS. The thing floats like you wouldn't believe. But the best thing is, it's a big board, but it surfs like a short board. So it makes me feel quite a bit younger than what I actually am.
Good.
Yeah.
See what the technology can do, right?
Yeah. So I've cheated there, Alessandro. I've given you two, but yeah, there you go.
The best shaper of all time.
Oh, that's a really tricky one. I'm not sure there is such a thing. I think one of the beauties with surfboards is it's a bit like art. Is everybody has different styles. They're known for different things. Obviously, there's a few that are favourites. I really liked Ben Iper when I was younger. I mean, he was a big guy, and I've always been a pretty big guy, and I saw the way that he could work volume and his size to create power. So I think that's something that's sort of underrated. A lot of people go for less and less volume in boards, but if you have volume and you can push it, you get power. So Ben Iper was, as I said, always somebody I looked at and thought he did pretty remarkable boards.
Personal question, your favorite song?
My favourite song?
Yeah.
That's too hard. Oh, that's a really, really tricky one. No, I can't do it.
Okay. Your favorite artist, at least?
Musical?
Yeah, musical.
Yeah, similar. It's a funny thing because different days, different things. But I guess just for longevity, Robert Plant being lead singer of Led Zeppelin, but also all of the stuff that he's done as a solo artist has been exceptional. So I'll say Robert Plant.
Okay, that's good. Your favorite surf spot?
That's a secret. No, there's a spot that I've surfed most of my life called Point Impossible, and there's probably about half a dozen 7 breaks within a kilometre. And having spent a bit of time there, at different tides and different winds and different swell, that there's usually a wave there to be had one way or another. In fact, there's times when I've been catching waves there where I realised that probably there's nobody else on the coast catching waves. It's just I've compromised and I'm catching things that are 1 foot high. But I really like the fact there's a little break at the end of the street where I live now that even with all the nonsense that's going on at the moment, I can put the board under my arm and walk down to the end of the street, and there's this little break. But sometimes if you get one that sits upright on the reef and then runs through to the sand, you can get quite a long ride, and it's a bit of fun.
Okay, fantastic. The best Australian surfer of all time, in your opinion?
Well, there's two, isn't there? There's statistically, and then personally. So statistically, Lane Beachley and Steph Gilmore are the most successful competitive surfers of all time in Australia. But yeah, look, I've just got a soft spot for Mark Richards. He's a great character. He rode the boards that he shaped. He won world championships on, and not too many people have done that. He continues to shape and surf to this day, and I've got a huge amount of respect for him.
Good. And the last question is a little bit unusual. So we want to know your best relationship advice.
Shared experience. Shared experience is the glue that binds people together.
I guess it's very important, like in a surf trip, right? You just share experience with the people you are with, and it becomes like a good memory, right?
Yeah, in a way that defines a relationship, because of course if you haven't shared any experiences with somebody, you have no relationship with them. So sharing experiences is the best way to build relationships, yeah.
That's a good point. Good point. Thanks a lot, Craig, for being on the show with us today, and we look forward to talk to you very soon. And let's hope to get to surf very soon after this coronavirus period, right?
Oh, I'm keen.
Cool.
Thanks, Alessandro.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Huh?
Ciao.
Ciao, Craig. Hi, it's me again. I hope you enjoyed our today's episode. If you want to know more about us, please follow www.thetempleofsurf.com and all our social media. Mahalo!